are very poorly understood by science. They're really the last frontier of exploration here on planet Earth.
The Mariana Trench lies between Hawaii and the Philippines, near the small island of Guam, as the deepest part of the ocean. This ancient Earth, which has been changing and evolving for billions of years, hides this fascinating yet eerie wonder beneath its surface. With its underwater mountains and valleys, the trench is home to a unique ecosystem.
We don't know how these animals have adapted to living under this unbelievable pressure that exists down there, 7 miles down at the bottom of the ocean.
But what secrets are buried in this dark, mysterious place? Scientists have made incredible discoveries, and now it's time to uncover what truly lurks deep inside the Mariana Trench.
Apparently, there's nothing in the ocean more delicious than humans.
Confirmed alien creatures of the Mariana Trench. The Mariana Trench got its name from the Mariana Islands, which are close by. Those islands were called Las Marianas to honor Queen Mariana of Austria from Spain. The islands sit on something called the Mariana Plate, which is basically a huge chunk of Earth's crust. But honestly, the wildest part isn't where the trench is located, but what lives down there. Some of the creatures in the trench are like aliens, because they don't seem to have originated from our planet, Earth. One of the strangest is a type of snailfish that's completely white and kind of see-through. It doesn't have any scales and swims around at crazy depths of over 26,000 feet below the surface. That's deeper than any other fish we've found so far. There's also the Dumbo octopus, a cute yet tough creature living deep in the ocean. Its fins look like Disney's Dumbo ears, and this gelatinous octopus can survive the incredible pressure at depths of up to 13,000 feet. Its ability to swallow prey whole shows just how well it's adapted to life in the dark depths of the ocean. As we dive even deeper, we come across the Black Sea Devil anglerfish, a fish that lives up to its name. With sharp teeth and a glowing lure above its head, it uses light to trick its prey in the dark waters. The males of this species do something truly strange because they permanently attach themselves to the females, ensuring they always have a mate. Next, we meet the ancient frilled shark, known as a living fossil. This shark has been around for more than 80 million years, and its snake-like movements and trident-shaped teeth make it a dangerous predator. It's a glimpse into the distant past, and a reminder of how little we really know about what lies deep in the ocean. Not forgetting the terrifying goblin shark, a creature with pale pink skin that blends in perfectly with the dark.
It has the ability to distend its jaw way out in front of its body and then snap it back to catch food.
Its long, flat snout and extendable jaws make it look like something out of a prehistoric age, both fascinating and a little creepy. In fact, if you look closely, you might spot a near-transparent telescope octopus floating vertically in the water. This creature is almost invisible in the dark, and its eyes can rotate to look around, helping it spot any danger or potential meals. On a decaying whale carcass, you might find zombie worms. These worms use acid to break through whale bones and eat the fat inside. With the help of bacteria, they turn bone into nutrients, playing a big role in cleaning up the ocean floor. A bit higher up, you'd spot the barrel-eye fish with its see-through skull. This cool adaptation lets it look up at predators or prey above it while it swims below. Its barrel-shaped eyes make it look like something from a science fiction movie. Another glowing creature is the deep-sea dragonfish, which lights up the ocean like a star. These predators, with no scales, use their glow to communicate and attract prey. And, crawling along the ocean floor, we find the sea pig, a pink, piglet-like creature that is actually a type of sea cucumber. It searches the seabed for food and breathes through its anus, living in groups. The sea pig plays a key role in the trench's ecosystem by helping to clean the seafloor. All these strange deep-sea life makes people ask a very big question. If creatures can survive in such extreme places on Earth, then is it possible something like that exists on other planets or moons? Scientists have been thinking about this for a long time. They believe that Jupiter's moon, called Europa, and Saturn's moon, named Enceladus, might have oceans hiding under thick layers of ice.
Europa is far more dynamic than we'd imagined.
Here's where the story gets even more wonderful, because the volcanoes of Io are constantly producing chemicals, materials that rain down onto the frozen surface of Europa.
These icy moons could even have hot vents, kind of like the ones found deep in Earth's oceans. So if life on Earth can grow in complete darkness, using chemicals instead of sunlight, maybe we're not alone in the universe after all. Unconfirmed scary creatures of the Mariana Trench. For a long time now, the Mariana Trench, with all its deep, dark mystery, has sparked all kinds of creepy stories about sea monsters. A lot of these tales come from old folklore or dramatic stories shared by fishermen and explorers. Some of the creatures people talk about are totally made up for scary stories, while others come from strange reports or sightings that were never really proven. One of the most famous legends is about something called the sea serpent. This creature is usually imagined as a massive snake-like animal that swims through the ocean. For hundreds of years, fishermen have said they've seen something long and twisty rising from the water, sometimes even attacking ships or pulling unlucky sailors under.
Sea serpents pop up in legends, myths, and art of cultures all over. What makes the Carborasaurus special?
Even though no one has ever found solid proof it exists, a few deep-sea explorers and fishermen have told stories about seeing big, snake-like creatures in or near deep trenches that sound a lot like the old sea serpent stories. Then there's another eerie legend called the Mariana sea monster, sometimes known as Gigantotherium. This one is even stranger. According to some old fishermen and sailors, this creature lives deep inside the Mariana Trench and is unbelievably huge, so big that it doesn't even seem possible. People describe it as a mix between a squid, a whale, and a serpent, like something from a nightmare. It's said to be way bigger than anything else in the ocean. The stories claim it sometimes rises from the deep, and when it does, it shakes up the water, sending waves crashing and scaring away other sea creatures. Of course, just like the sea serpent, no one has real evidence this thing exists, but that hasn't stopped people from telling stories about it. In fact, the mystery and the unknown make these tales even more exciting, and they keep getting passed down, even now in 2025. Up next is the legendary Kraken. This monster comes from old Scandinavian stories and is probably one of the most famous sea creatures ever imagined. These days, people picture the Kraken as a giant squid or octopus.
Both species frequent the deep, cold waters of the ocean, making it hard to see them in their natural habitat. Before the 21st century, no photographic evidence of a living giant squid existed. It wasn't until 2006 that we first caught these creatures alive on video.
That's big enough to pull ships underwater and drag sailors to the bottom of the ocean. Some deep-sea explorers who've gone near the Mariana Trench have claimed to spot huge, tentacle-like shapes moving in the dark, but nothing has ever been officially proven. We do know that giant squids are real because they've been caught and studied, but the idea of one so massive it could sink a whole ship is still just a guess. Still, some people believe the trench might be hiding a kraken-like creature we haven't discovered yet, especially since it's so deep, dark, and untouched by most of the world.
Some say it's an alien. Others say a military experiment. It's also been called a dinosaur, a humanoid, a robot, and even the devil itself.
And then there's a creepy tale known as the Chupacabra of the ocean. The name comes from the land legend of the Chupacabra, a creature said to suck the blood out of animals. This ocean version is just as strange. The idea is that some mysterious creatures living in the Mariana Trench might feed on the blood of other sea animals. A few fishermen who've worked near the trench say they've seen fish or eel-like animals with big, scary fangs or spikes that look made for sucking blood. These sea monsters are described as being large and mean-looking, able to attack and drain smaller creatures. There's no solid proof they exist, but that hasn't stopped people from wondering. The thought of blood-drinking sea beasts hiding in the deepest parts of the ocean adds even more mystery to what's already a pretty wild place. And in a world where new creatures are still being found, especially in places like the Mariana Trench, who's to say what might really be down there? And of course, there's the legend of Megalodon, the giant prehistoric shark. Most scientists agree that Megalodon went extinct millions of years ago, but some folks believe it might still be alive and hiding in the deep parts of the ocean, like the Mariana Trench. A few stories talk about huge fins spotted slicing through the water, or massive dark shapes moving far below. These tales have led people to wonder if Megalodon didn't really disappear, but just moved into parts of the ocean we haven't explored. There's no scientific evidence for this, but the idea that something ancient could still be lurking deep below is just too exciting for some people to ignore. Even if these creatures sound like myths, it's important to remember that most of the Mariana Trench still hasn't been explored. That leaves plenty of room for unknown animals to exist. After all, the trench is known for being home to strange and mysterious life. And then there are those weird noises that scientists have recorded coming from the deep. Sounds no one has fully explained yet. So it makes you wonder, what could be making those eerie sounds if not some of the scariest creatures we've ever imagined? What's making all that noise? Way down at the bottom of the Mariana Trench, in that pitch-black, freezing, high-pressure world, something strange is happening. Something that makes noise. And not just any noise. We're talking about weird, eerie sounds that scientists can't fully explain. Most people know the trench as the deepest place on Earth, where the pressure can crush just about anything. But what's not so well known is that the trench doesn't sit there in total silence. Instead, it makes all kinds of strange sounds, hums, echoes, low rumbles, and even noises that sound almost like singing. Back in 2014, a group of researchers working with the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, also known as NOAA, lowered a special microphone called a hydrophone into the trench. What they picked up was seriously strange. One of the sounds they caught stood out so much, they gave it a nickname, the Western Pacific Biotwang. It sounded kind of metallic and robotic, almost like something from a science fiction movie. The sound lasted around 3.5 seconds, starting off low, dipping even lower, and then rising in pitch. No one had heard anything quite like it before. At first, the scientists thought it might be a call from a baleen whale, maybe a minke whale, since some whales do make odd sounds. But when they compared it to other known whale calls, it didn't quite match. What made it even weirder was that the sound didn't follow any regular schedule. It happened during the day and the night, unlike most whale calls that tend to happen during specific times depending on behavior. Now let's talk about some other strange noises from the trench. Those super low, deep rumbles that almost feel like thunder rolling through the ocean. These sounds seem to stretch out forever, and many scientists think they're coming from the Earth itself. You see, the Mariana Trench sits right where two giant tectonic plates meet. The Pacific Plate is slowly being pushed under the smaller Mariana Plate, and this process, called subduction, is what formed the trench in the first place. When these plates grind or shift, it can cause earthquakes or even underwater volcanoes. So it makes sense that some of the deep rumbles we hear are just the Earth moving and doing its thing. But not everything makes perfect sense. Some of the noises recorded from down there don't sound like earthquakes or sea animals. There are metallic tapping sounds, steady repeating pulses, and out of nowhere, super high-pitched screeches. They're strange, and no one can say for sure what causes them. These odd noises spark curiosity, even in scientists who usually rely on hard facts. Some start to wonder if something totally new is down there, something we haven't discovered yet. The biggest issue with finding out what's really making these sounds is how tough it is to explore the trench. Getting equipment down there isn't easy. Anything sent into the trench has to handle pressure that's over 1,000 times stronger than what we feel at sea level. And even when the gear works like it should, the trench is so huge and so deep that tracking down where the noise is coming from, or what's making it, is nearly impossible. Then, in 2015, something pretty interesting was recorded down at the very bottom of the Mariana Trench, in a spot called Challenger Deep. Scientists had dropped special underwater microphones called hydrophones into the depths, expecting mostly silence. But what they found was the opposite. It was surprisingly noisy down there. Some of the sounds probably came from small sea creatures, like shrimp snapping their claws. But other sounds? Well, Those were a lot harder to figure out. Sound moves way better in water than it does in air. That means noises made hundreds of miles away can travel all the way into the trench. It also means that if anything lives down there and uses sound to communicate, it could talk or signal across huge distances. So when scientists pick up strange sounds that don't match anything they've heard before, it's not just spooky. It could be a clue that there's more going on in the deep than we thought. Maybe it's life, maybe even smart life. The Mariana Trench is still mostly a mystery. Less than 5% of the entire ocean has been carefully studied, and the trench is one of the hardest places to reach. So when weird sounds bubble up from way down below, even the experts don't always know what to make of them. Sure, not every scientist jumps to wild conclusions. A lot of them say we should be careful before assuming it's anything mysterious or alien. They explain that we're still learning, and sometimes our tools or knowledge just aren't good enough to explain what we're hearing. Still, even the most serious researchers agree that there's definitely stuff going on down there we haven't figured out yet. Early exploration of the Mariana Trench. Exploring the Mariana Trench is like taking a trip to the deepest, darkest parts of our planet's oceans. The journey to figure out how this deep gash in Earth's crust came to be started way back in 1872, when a ship called the HMS Challenger set sail. Before that mission, most people thought the bottom of the ocean was flat and boring, but the Challenger's 4-year trip changed everything. The crew traveled about 68,000 nautical miles, around 78,000 miles in regular terms, and became the first to do a real, detailed check of what was under the waves. Every 140 miles or so, they'd drop a thick rope with a heavy weight to measure how deep the water was. By the end, they had used more than 200 miles of rope. It was tough, slow work, but back then, that was the only way to figure out how deep the ocean went. When they got close to an island called Guam, something strange happened. Their rope just kept dropping farther than expected. Finally, it touched the bottom at about 4,475 fathoms. That's around 26,850 feet, or a little over 8,100 meters. That's nearly 5 miles deep. At the time, it was one of the deepest ocean measurements ever recorded, and it got scientists really curious. Was this just a deep hole, or was it something much bigger? That trip on the Challenger is now seen as the start of modern ocean science. It showed that the ocean floor wasn't flat at all. It had underwater mountains, wide plains, and deep valleys. Nowhere was this more obvious than in the western Pacific Ocean, where the seafloor suddenly dropped into what we now call the Mariana Trench. But even after that discovery, it took almost 75 more years and a lot of new technology to learn more. The big breakthrough came with something called sonar. Sonar, which is short for sound navigation and ranging, was first built in the early 1900s, mainly during and after World War I, to help detect submarines. By the 1940s, sonar technology had gotten good enough to help map the ocean floor in much more detail. It works by sending out sound waves and timing how long they take to bounce back from the bottom. This made it way easier and more accurate to figure out the ocean's shape compared to using heavy ropes. In 1951, the British Royal Navy ship HMS Challenger II returned to the spot where the original Challenger had made its deepest measurement nearly 80 years earlier. Using sonar, they pinpointed the deepest part of the trench and named it Challenger Deep to honor the first Challenger mission in 1872. This spot, located near the southern end of the Mariana Trench, was found to be almost 36,000 feet deep, or around 10,994 meters, which is nearly 7 miles under the ocean's surface. To put it in perspective, if you placed Mount Everest in the trench, its peak would still be more than a mile underwater. The trench itself stretches about 1,550 miles, reaching from southeast of Guam to near Japan. At its deepest point, Challenger Deep still holds the title as the lowest known point on Earth's crust. Although sonar and bathymetry technology helped map the trench's size, scientists still weren't sure how it had formed. They suspected it had something to do with tectonic plate subduction, but they needed to see it up close to confirm. The pressure at the bottom of the trench is staggering, at around 1,086 bars, or more than 15,750 pounds per square inch. That's like having 50 jumbo jets pressing down on you from all sides. To give people an idea of just how powerful that pressure is, scientists often use a styrofoam mannequin head or cup. When sent down to the trench in a pressure chamber or attached to deep diving equipment, the foam shrinks dramatically because of the intense force. It's a simple but eye-opening way to show just how extreme conditions are down there. To explore this deep region in person, scientists needed a submersible that could handle the crushing pressure. In 1953, Swiss physicist Auguste Piccard designed a bathyscaphe called the Trieste. This special deep-diving vessel used a gasoline-filled float for buoyancy and a thick steel sphere to hold the crew. The cabin was about 7 feet across, with walls more than 5 inches thick to withstand the immense pressure. After years of testing, the U.S. Navy finally got the Trieste ready for a historic dive. On January 23, 1960, Lieutenant Don Walsh and Jacques Piccard, who was the son of Auguste Piccard, set off to explore the Mariana Trench. They launched from Guam, keeping the mission under wraps in case something went wrong. Inside the tight steel sphere, they spent about 9 hours in total, around 5 hours going down, 20 minutes on the seafloor, and another 4 hours coming back up. They reached the bottom safely at about 10,916 meters, or nearly 35,814 feet. This made them the first people to ever reach Challenger Deep, the lowest known point on Earth. The only light came from their vessel's lamps and glowing sea creatures. Although they couldn't snap pictures because the descent stirred up too much sediment, the dive proved that life could survive under such extreme pressure, and that technology could actually make it to the ocean's deepest place. During their descent, Walsh and Piccard passed their previous deepest dive of 18,000 feet without trouble. But about 2 hours into the dive, they heard a loud bang as one of the acrylic windows had cracked. At around 20,000 feet underwater, they checked everything, and the pressure sphere was still intact. With nearly 8 tons of pressure on every square inch, their capsule was holding up, so they decided to keep going. As they neared the bottom, they saw something moving on the ocean floor. Walsh thought it was a flatfish, but marine scientists now believe that fish wouldn't survive the pressure. At 35,800 feet, the depth matched previous sonar readings, and they had reached Challenger Deep. After about 20 minutes on the seafloor, they started their ascent. The Trieste surfaced near Guam after 9 hours, marking one of the most incredible dives in history. Even though later dives reached similar depths, the Trieste's mission remains a major milestone in ocean exploration. What the Mariana Trench has revealed about our planet. In the 1950s and 60s, geologist Harry Hess and others started looking at sonar maps of the ocean floor. These maps showed that the Mariana Trench was part of a huge system of underwater canyons and ridges, including the giant East Pacific Rise. This suggested there might be a connection between deep trenches and ocean ridges. The U.S. Cold War surveillance technology played an unexpected role in figuring things out too. Seismometers set up to detect atomic explosions also picked up natural earthquakes, revealing that most seismic activity happened along mid-ocean ridges and trenches. This helped scientists realize that Earth's surface isn't fixed, but made of tectonic plates that move around. These plates are always shifting, colliding, and pulling apart, changing the ocean floor. When plates crash into each other, one slides beneath the other, forming trenches like the Mariana Trench. When they pull apart, new crust is created, forming ridges like the East Pacific Rise. The Mariana Trench marks the spot where the Pacific Plate slides under the Mariana Plate. More evidence came from Cold War-era magnetic detection. The U.S. Navy used magnetometers to track submarines, but they also discovered strange striped patterns in the ocean floor's magnetic field. These zebra stripes recorded Earth's magnetic field reversals, proving the theory of seafloor spreading and explaining how the Mariana Trench formed over millions of years. In the 1960s, scientists figured out that molten rock rises at mid-ocean ridges, spreads, and forms new crust. As it cooled, magnetic minerals in the magma aligned with Earth's magnetic field, creating those stripes. These stripes helped scientists measure how fast tectonic plates were moving. Then, in 1977, a team aboard the Nor found hydrothermal vents shooting out superheated water, a discovery that changed marine science. This was the first solid proof of geothermal heating linked to ridge formation. The water around the vents shimmered and moved in ripples, a sign that it was incredibly hot. Measurements showed that temperatures near the vents could reach up to 660 degrees Fahrenheit, or around 350 degrees Celsius, which is way hotter than the usual cold deep-sea temperatures, which are usually around 38 to 39 degrees Fahrenheit. These hydrothermal vents proved that magma from deep beneath the Earth's crust was heating the water and triggering chemical reactions right at the ocean floor. Instead of spreading out evenly, the heat was channeled through these tall, chimney-like vents, creating hot, toxic fluid plumes. At first, scientists didn't fully grasp how important these vents were, but soon it became clear that they were strong evidence connecting magma activity to the spreading of the seafloor. They also revealed ecosystems that didn't rely on sunlight at all, but instead thrived by using chemosynthesis, an idea that completely changed our understanding of where and how life could exist. The discovery of the magnetic zebra stripes on the seafloor, along with the hydrothermal vents, gave scientists a clear picture of a process at work. New ocean crust being formed at mid-ocean ridges and moving outward. But this raised an important question. If the seafloor is always spreading out, why isn't the Earth getting bigger? The answer was found on the opposite side of the Pacific Plate. As new crust is created at the ridges, old crust must be destroyed elsewhere. Scientists realized that deep ocean trenches like the Mariana Trench were where this crust was being recycled, sinking back into the Earth's mantle in a process called subduction. The race to the bottom of the Mariana Trench in modern times. From everything we've talked about so far, it might seem like the Mariana Trench is the last place anyone would want to go. But surprisingly, that's not the case for some people. After the historic 1960 Trieste mission, no one ventured back to the bottom of Challenger Deep for a long time. However, the desire to explore it came back with full force. This time, it wasn't just about proving it could be done. It was about making new scientific discoveries, showing off national pride, and pushing the boundaries of technology. Two men, James Cameron and Victor Vescovo, would each take their own shot at reaching the bottom, each bringing fresh ideas, new equipment, and a drive to solve the trench's mysteries. In 2012, film director and explorer James Cameron made headlines when he became the first person to complete a solo dive to Challenger Deep. Known for directing Titanic and Avatar, Cameron had always been fascinated by the ocean. But his dive wasn't for fame, it was a serious scientific mission. His submersible, the Deep-Sea Challenger, was a bright green, torpedo-shaped vehicle designed to withstand the immense pressure of over 16,000 pounds per square inch at the bottom of the trench. Unlike the bulky Trieste, this sub was built for speed and exploration, equipped with high-definition 3D cameras and robotic arms to gather samples.
My job evolved as the project went on. So at the start, I was working in the factory that was researching and developing the sub. So we were looking at a lot of new technologies, a lot of new ways to get electronic systems to work without pressure housing.
The descent took around 2.5 hours, and then another few hours were spent completing the mission and coming back up. Cameron spent just under 3 hours on the ocean floor, recording footage of the flat, barren seafloor and collecting sediment samples. The dive wasn't without its dangers. The Deep-Sea Challenger was a brand new, experimental sub filled with cutting-edge technology, and its pilot had to trust it completely. James Cameron trained hard for the mission, learning how to manually control the systems just in case the computer systems failed. He also made sure there were backup systems which included extra batteries, emergency life support, and mechanisms for a quick ascent if needed. But once he was down there, he was completely alone, with no chance of rescue. If anything went wrong with the sub, there would be no way to survive. Even though Cameron's dive didn't uncover strange deep-sea creatures like some had hoped, it proved that solo missions to the deepest parts of the ocean were possible. His journey sparked new interest in ocean exploration and opened the door for more advanced technological missions. But it wasn't until 7 years later that someone would go even deeper. In 2019, Victor Vescovo, a retired U.S. Navy officer and private equity investor, became the first person to reach the deepest point of the Mariana Trench more than once. As part of the 5 Deeps expedition, he set out to dive to the deepest point in every ocean, but the Mariana Trench was the ultimate goal. He used a custom-built submersible called the DSV Limiting Factor, created by Triton submarines. Unlike the earlier vessels, this one was built for repeated use, safety, and scientific research. The limiting factor was an incredible feat of engineering. Its crew compartment was made from specially designed titanium, strong enough to handle the immense pressure nearly 7 miles below the ocean surface. The sub was equipped with advanced sonar, thrusters for smooth movement, and robotic arms that could collect biological and geological samples. It was capable of diving over and over again and staying down much longer than any other deep-sea vehicle before it.
Well, this is the DSV Limiting Factor, currently the most advanced deep diving submersible in the world. It's 90 millimeters of titanium thick that can withstand easily 16,000 pounds per square inch of pressure at the bottom of the seafloor.
Vescovo's dives each took more than 4 hours to complete, and he reached a record depth of almost 10,928 meters, or around 35,853 feet. While on the ocean floor, he spent time exploring, filming, and collecting samples. One surprising discovery was finding signs of life at such extreme depths. He spotted creatures like amphipods, holothurians, and even bacteria living in the sediment. But perhaps the most shocking find was a piece of plastic, showing that even the deepest parts of the ocean are not free from pollution. Unlike Cameron, Vescovo completed multiple dives and even allowed other scientists and journalists to join him on some of his missions. This helped confirm his scientific discoveries and gave the trench more attention for research. During these expeditions, over 400 biological samples were collected and more than 100 hours of video footage was captured. These missions proved that deep-sea exploration was no longer just a one-time adventure, but could turn into long-term scientific study. In fact, the race to the bottom of the sea isn't over. China, Japan, and other nations have shown interest in exploring the trench. New submersibles are being developed to make these dives more frequent and data-rich. There's talk of deploying long-term observatories, or even mining operations, though the environmental risks of such ventures remain deeply controversial. Thanks for watching. See you in our next video.